from West Africa. A former RAF intelligence officer has been convicted of 23 counts of child abuse at an airbase in Germany in the 1980s. Edward Graham, who's 63, indecently assaulted 13 boys. He'll be sentenced next month. European ministers are considering whether to set up a multinational team to tackle the threat of jihadists returning to Europe from countries like Syria or Iraq. The travel of suspected fighters would be monitored, and officials would work with social media firms to prevent extremists spreading their message online. The European Commissioner for Home Affairs, Cecilia Malmström, says the internet is just one part of the problem.
There's a radicalization ongoing on the internet, for instance, and we need to work with local leaders, religious leaders, teachers, social leaders, and this is what we're trying to set up on a European level in a network called Radicalization Awareness Network, and putting our services at the disposal of member states.
Voters in 2 parliamentary by-elections have less than an hour left to cast their ballots. Polling stations will close at Acton in Essex and in the constituency of Haywood and Middleton in Greater Manchester. 2 men have been jailed for a plot to import heroin in a specially adapted
potential new drug was what we just studied.
Something that goes.
Service. Telephone number 01215.
I used to say I love you, but
the account the ECB's in.
¿Me ayuda?
After you will, it's still 3.
Involved in our spatial awareness. Now that actually goes back to experiments that John O'Keefe did back in 1971, when all of this was just a black box, and they knew that the hippocampus was involved in memory, something to do with space. But as he explained at a press conference on Monday, that was enough for him to start doing his research.
We knew from work by Brenda Milner that damage to this part of the brain, the hippocampus and surrounding areas, led to a profound loss of memory. So I thought, okay, we now have techniques, which I was partly involved in developing, for actually listening to the activity of single cells in an animal such as a rat as they were doing simple memory tasks. And that's what I decided to do. When I went into this part of the brain, I hadn't the slightest idea that it was going to end up being a spatial memory system. And that was the great surprise. And when I saw the cells that were responding when the animal went to one part of the room and not the other part of the room, then I realized that if you put them all together, you would have something like a map.
So that was John O'Keefe talking at the Nobel press conference on Monday. Now, he mentioned Brenda Milner there, who's a very famous, now 94-year-old neuroscientist in the States. And he was there describing some of his work where he established these cells called place cells, which help establish where one is. But the second and third winners, this time around, the husband and wife couple, they were looking at grid cells. Can you explain what they are?
It was always thought there had to be more to a brain mapping system, and there is. That's what these two, Maybrit Moser and Edvard Moser, discovered. There's a kind of virtual grid system. Actually, it's a triangular one that the brain uses, so that when you're walking, like if you're in the dark in your bedroom, you sort of know roughly where the bed or the wall